Jake catches a chill as the house grows cold. Liza stares into a mirror cracked and old. Rob holds a camera that's shaking in his hands. Jen's heart sank like hourglass sands.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Psycho Opinion. Tonight we have guest host Steve, and I'll say that because tonight we've decided to watch some movies that we all love, kind of each, sort of pick a movie here and there so that we can discuss it. And tonight is Steve's movie. So Steve, why don't you tell us about the movie that you picked and we'll discuss it a little.
All right. Well, thank you guys. So the movie
You're
that
welcome.
we all watched was Horsemen, not to be confused with Horseman, that was done virtually at the same time, and
Really?
a completely different premise and all. Um, so,
That's weird.
so this one is a 2008, although sometimes it's noted as a 2009 movie, about a detective. He is like a dental, uh, like kind of like
Pathologist?
that's it. That's it.
Forensics?
Forensic. Dental forensics
Oh.
is his kind of speciality, and so he was kind of brought into this movie because of who he was. So that was kind of the reasoning why he was picked per se. And so the kind of brief synopsis of the movie, we'll start with that. The main character is named Aiden Breslin, and he is played by who, Jake?
Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid, my boy.
I love Dennis Quaid.
He's
Yeah.
fantastic, and I think in a lot of ways, without him, this movie might have been a bit of a dumpster fire. I think he really helped it out and turned it into something watchable. Um, but Detective Breslin, is a emotionally distant father from his two young sons, following the untimely death of his wife. While investigating a series of murders of rare violence, he discovers a terrifying link between a chain of murders and the biblical prophecies concerning the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And that just kind of ends up creeping in, and he finds out that there is a tether or a tie to the horseman as he continues to investigate. He is the type of detective in like so many others in movies like this that seem to tread water through the entire movie and almost get nowhere. It seems like he's not terribly good at his job, or he's always two steps behind um, in trying to figure out or find out what he's looking for. But uh, one thing that I found kind of interesting with this movie is that it has once again the four horsemen of the apocalypse is brought up in multiple cases, but I often questioned what character was actually what horseman, like what character was portrayed as what horseman, and that's something I wanted to talk to you guys about and kind of pick your brain as we go, because I think it's not quite as clear cut as it might have been. Um, but I want to backtrack just briefly and talk about the director, because there's a couple of interesting things about him. Um, the guy's name is Jonas Ackerlund, and he is Swedish. Now, the cool thing about him, and I don't know if you guys have heard of this band, but me being a metalhead and everything back in the 80s, there was a band named Bathory. I don't know if you guys have
Hmm.
What
heard
was the
that
name?
band. Bathory. Like,
Bathory?
yeah, like Elizabeth
Like
Bathory.
like Elizabeth Bathory. Oh, okay.
Yep. And they were like a death metal Swedish death metal band. So this director, Jonas Ackerlund, was actually the original drummer for that band in
Wow.
1983 to
Oh, that's sweet.
1984. And I
Huh.
don't
Yeah.
know if it's because of his musical ties, but he is actually maybe known more for his music videos that he's produced than the actual movies that he's done. And he's done a boatload of them. Or directed music videos for Roxette, Moby, Prodigy, Madonna, Cardigans, Metallica, Jamiroquai, uh, Ozzy, Smashing Pumpkins. I mean, tons of them. Um, so I thought that was actually pretty interesting. And
Smack my bitch up.
that's right. And he actually, in 2007, received an MVPA Hall of Fame award for that video that he produced. So,
Really?
and that's
Smack
just
my bitch up?
that's it. That's the song.
I was just guessing. I just threw out a Prodigy song, but that's awesome because I actually really like that song.
Yeah, it's one that
I'm a '90s
kind
kid,
of
so
sticks in my head too when you talk about Prodigy.
smack my
Um,
bitch up.
so one thing I wanted to mention briefly before we get into really the story itself is the four horsemen because of the apocalypse because I've read up on it a little bit and depending upon where I get my information from, there is a little bit of tweaking. It's a little different one way than another, depending on once again where I'm reading. And
Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you right there. The issue is it's the Bible.
that's true.
The reason I say that the issue is that it's the Bible is because there's only been about 510,000 interpretations, so it's like absolutely been bastardized over and over and over and over and over again over the years. So depending on where you look, I mean, you get everything from the original to like Kids Bop, you know, Revelations. I don't know. It's interesting. The Bible's a funny thing. Whenever you're looking stuff up, it's different everywhere you look.
It is, and because you just stated the interpretation factor of it, there's so many potential options to choose from as far as what is what. But the one that seemed to be the kind of consensus was that there's, of course, four horses. There's a white horse, a red horse, a black horse, and a pale horse, which is kind of comical when you think a white horse and a pale horse. Well, what the heck is the difference? So the white horse is often interpreted as conquest, sometimes a symbol of religious deception or false teachings. Others believe that it could be Christ himself returning on a white horse. The red horse is war. It represents actual warfare, conflict, and bloodshed. Then famine, the black horse, symbolizes the scarcity of food, shortages, and destruction of Earth's ability to sustain life, in essence. I question what that horse was in this movie, being that there really wasn't anything about food. But that, once again, we'll get back to that on kind of who was what. But it was up for interpretation, and I think I may or may not have gotten that right. And then finally, the pale horse, which is death. And often when I've heard of the pale horse, I immediately think of a white horse, but that's not in fact the case. It's like a pale green or a light green. Which, obviously, I've never seen a green horse before, but
Mhm.
um, that's
It's supposed to be
the
like a corpse.
makes
That's what
sense.
I read.
There you go.
Yeah.
And represents mortality, illness, pestilence, and the ultimate consequence of other horsemen's actions. So those four.
Well, we always like to kind of discuss some of the other stuff about this film, and I think it's interesting because right now what I'm looking at is the ratings are on IMDb. It's about 5.5, which is mid-range. Rotten Tomatoes is 17%.
Ouch.
However, if you look at the Google users, 82% like the movie.
Hmm.
So this one is like all over the map. It's high, it's low, it's in between, depending on who you want to look at. Kind of a mixed bag of ratings, really.
I felt like it was a kind of movie that had so much potential, and there were certain times within the movie that I thought to myself, boy, they are either just treading water trying to figure out what to do next, or they had potentially set the plot down for a while and said, okay, here we're at a stumbling block. What do we want to do to this point? And then they come up with something later on, and then they put that into the movie. Uh, it feels disjointed at times, and as far as the movie is concerned, there are certain points when I watched it that I felt like I was getting to a climax of some sort, or that something was getting ready to happen, and then it leveled out and kind of just meandered a little bit.
I do agree with you, Steve. Um, there were some things that kind of missed the mark for me in this movie. I did like it though. Um, but I think the most disappointing thing for me is how they deal with each horseman and each murder. Like I feel like I don't know. Like I get like I think I get like which one's which. You know.
Mm,
I mean, red was pretty obvious.
mhm.
Um, but like black and the pale horse. I think I got those because there is some green and there's black. In one of the other murders. But I just didn't feel like it really like embodied. I guess like the whole apocalypse horses and horsemen. I don't
Very
know. Like I feel like they
ambiguous.
could have done, yeah, they could have done more to like connect them. I think than just color or the symbol. They do use like a little symbol, the necklace.
Right.
Mm.
And I
Um,
noticed within this movie too that there was a lot of dialogue that within the actual characters themselves. Um,
mm,
the young girl, what's her name, Zhang, Z, Z or something. It was
yeah, I had a hard time
Zhang
trying to pronounce
Z.
it too. I don't
She's
remember.
been in a lot of
Zhang
really,
Z.
yeah, she's been in some great movies. Not a
Oh yeah.
ton of horror movies, but she's like, what is it? Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and all those types of movies. Like
Oh,
she's very popular for those. Um,
She was in Rush Hour, Hero, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon,
yeah,
The Grandmaster. Mostly a lot of like kung fu type movies. Memoirs of a Geisha.
yeah,
oh,
and
I've seen it.
so she was one of those characters within the movie that, in a lot of ways, she almost felt like a poor man's Hannibal Lecter. Um, you know, it, like that was kind of what they were trying to do with her character.
Mm,
Although she did do a decent job. I saw a lot of reviews where they didn't like her cast as that role, and I thought she actually did pretty good. She
yeah.
obviously a very small in stature, kind of small Asian woman, but yet at the same time she had a bit of uh, like this sinister nature to her, obviously because of what she did.
Right.
After you find that out, but she was a little bit scary. Like you don't, I mean, she could be the type of person that come up and slit your throat from behind or something, and
Yeah.
laugh at you while you're dying. She kind of encapsulated that type of a character, I think, pretty well. I thought it was believable. So
Well, I'll go ahead and jump in a little bit here. So this movie, for me, drew some parallels between two things, really, and that's what I think is the obvious Seven, as well as something that I tried to get Jen to watch, which was called The Following with Kevin Bacon. And it drew parallels for that because of kind of the cult, distant cult thing where there are people that were kind of in a cult, but they weren't easily connected the way that they were in this movie. However, with that being said, the correlations with Seven, I feel like Seven was such a better plot, and I realize that they're not the same. I understand that they're not the same. One is obviously the Four Horsemen, whereas the other one is the Seven Deadly Sins, but they're very reminiscent of one another because of the biblical implications. With that being said, I think that Seven was done much better, and kind of having almost like that feeling when I was watching the movie. I really wanted it to step up. However, also I will say that to me, I will agree with Steve 100% that Dennis Quaid really held this movie together because I'm a Dennis Quaid fan, and honestly, people can say whatever they want, but I prefer Dennis Quaid to Brad Pitt. Honestly, if I'm watching a movie, I would cast Dennis Quaid before Brad Pitt because I do like him that much. So for me, that was definitely a redeeming factor to this movie. I agree 100% with Jen, and I think you also said it, Steve. I feel like they got a little disjointed. I feel like they really could have explored more about the actual Four Horsemen during the murders. It was a little kind of confusing who was responsible for which and which murder represented who, and that got all like a little bit confusing. I'm sure we'll get to that because you're going to be discussing the plot further, but the ending did feel kind of predictable to me, except for the very end. The very end, I was left a little bit like I don't know what's going to happen there. For a few reasons, and I'll get to that when we actually discuss the ending of this movie. Um, Other things I enjoyed though was Eric Balfour made a quick appearance in it. He wasn't in it for very long, but I do like him. He was in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake, the one with Jessica Biel that I always talk about, and also Peter Stormare made a small appearance in this
Mhm.
movie as well, who is also another one of my little favorites there. I always enjoy him in anything I see him in. It's like, oh, there's that guy, the Russian. We all know him as the Russian guy. He's always the Russian. But yeah, I mean, it was. It's hard to say because this movie was enjoyable, but for like strange reasons. It wasn't necessarily enjoyable to me because I'm like, damn, that was a good plot. Hell yeah, that really satisfied me as far as the meat and potatoes of a movie go because it really didn't. But the acting, I guess maybe the familiarity of something about the vibe in the movie, those things were interesting, kept me watching, and kind of I don't know. That's probably what I enjoyed about it the most, and I think anybody that watches it that you might understand what I'm trying to say there.
Oh, I completely agree. And back to your point for like Eric Balfour, of course, back in the Buffy days too, he was in that, um, and of course, like you said, Texas Chainsaw, also in Backcountry, which was actually a pretty decent movie. I thought he had, albeit a short uh, stint within the movie, one of the more realistic uh, portrayals of a character.
Yeah,
He was
he he,
he was
he was
definitely.
good.
I mean, he hated his brother. He hated what he was. He hated what he stood for, and even going through what he went through, in seeing his brother virtually sacrifice himself to prove a point, was unable to. Probably the psychosis of it all helped a lot, but still unable uh, to come to terms and to grips with who his brother was. And, so let's kind of backtrack real quick. And if I get off on a little bit of a tangent, guys, certainly let me know or interject in any form or fashion
Yeah.
that you'd like.
Can I
So
say something really quick? I'm sorry.
absolutely no,
Say
We
something
were
really long, Jen. Do it.
we were talking about
and your time's up.
we were talking about like all the people in the movie, like different people that we know from like other movies. And there was one in particular that like I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that's him." I was just like shocked that I saw him, and you haven't mentioned him yet, so I'm going to mention him. Did you guys notice that the guy from Late Night with the Devil was briefly on there?
Yes.
He did have lines. So it wasn't like a cameo or a little short like thing. It was kind of
Yeah.
short, but he had
No, I
lines.
do. I don't recall his name, but I
Oh,
do.
I wrote it down, but I might not say it correctly. David Dast Dastmalchian? Malcolin?
Sure.
I don't know.
Who was he in the movie?
In Late Night with the Devil, the
No, 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 no.
the
In this
host.
movie,
Oh, he like
David.
analyzed. He analyzed
Okay,
something for them.
his
Yeah.
name was Terrence, and he is
Yeah.
David Dastmalchian.
Yeah.
I
That.
mean,
Yeah.
David Dastmalchian.
Sounds good.
Dastmalchian.
Didi.
Yeah.
Dastmalchian.
Yes.
David. We'll call him
Dave. We're
Dave.
going to call him David, and he had about almost as much of a role as I did in the movie. But yes, I did recognize him. So Dennis Quaid is Aiden. He's the detective. His son Alex, played by Lou Taylor Pucci, we'll call him. I don't know if that's pronounced correctly or not, but I'm gonna guess. Uh,
Lou Taylor Pucci.
Pucci, baby,
Oh, Poochie.
Pucci.
I thought you
Pucci.
said Hoochie. Yeah.
No, no.
No,
Yeah.
it's Lou Taylor Pucci.
Lou Taylor Pucci
Poochie.
was in. The only thing that I knew of was Evil Dead 2013, but that's his older son. Then Clifton Collins Jr. is his partner in crime, the detective Stingray. Uh,
Clifton Collins has been in a few
he's
things.
been in
He
a
was
ton of stuff.
definitely, yeah.
Um,
He was in The Last Castle. I love that movie. That's
he was,
a mentionable,
and a movie that
mentionable
I
movie.
absolutely love from back in the late '90s was 187. Uh,
Yeah, 187.
yep, that was a
Samuel L.
fantastic movie.
Jackson.
Yep, it was a
Oh,
really good
I
movie.
never saw it.
It's that's worth a watch for sure. And then he was in uh, Hellbenders, Stung, and The Vault, kind of like his horror, uh,
Hmm.
amongst others, of course. Then there was, and I could butcher these names, but Patrick Fugit.
I think it's
Or
Fugit,
Fugit.
Patrick
but
Fugit.
you might be right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know him
So
I'm gonna
though.
say Fugit.
Fugit.
Patrick Fugit.
So his name is Corey. He plays the younger brother of Eric Balfour, who is Taylor, and Corey portrays a young gay man uh, in this movie who is kind of ostracized by his family and certainly his brother, and they don't really want to have anything to do with him, and which kind of spurs on his involvement and ultimate demise in taking his own life within this movie to kind of stick it to his own brother. And you notice that a lot, that theme within this movie is so many other horror movies or action movies. When somebody is trying to punish somebody, they do it directly to somebody. They shoot somebody, they stab somebody, they do whatever. Within this movie, it's all kind of by proxy. They hurt others or hurt somebody close to them to, or including themselves. In the case of Corey taking his own life, to stick it to his brother. So he was willing to sacrifice his own life in a very gruesome way just to make a point, and it was a very strong point. And then as
I just want to say the
Sure.
detective. I thought this was really interesting. The detective said that it was the closest he had ever seen to somebody cutting out their own heart.
Yep.
Oh no! Corey, stop it! God, what's supposed to do? Stop!
and that scene might be, for my money, the best in the whole movie, where his brother is hanging. And of course, within this movie, there are several different suspension pieces of equipment that a local uh, tattoo parlor had put together, and that's kind of the common theme that is used throughout in the deaths, is that people are hung by hooks and either tortured themselves and killed, or used as a means to witness another person, in this case Corey, killing himself. And another strange fact about this movie, the director wanted to initially use people that were big into S&M and other types of uh, things like that, to put real people in real setups with hooks
Oh.
and all this other stuff. And they decided that that probably was a bad idea, being that there undoubtedly would be real blood and other things. So they decided to
Can't have
use
that.
prosthetics. But they were entertaining for a while, using people that actually did that for enjoyment, as actors or actresses in this
Oh,
instance.
there's
So
a lot of them. You see that stuff at like Burning Man festivals and things like that.
right,
Very interesting.
yeah, it's wild. I mean, there's a whole world out there that I am not into, but uh, is quite something. A platter out on the ice that has a bunch of old teeth. Their determination was that whomever those teeth belonged to, more than likely, were still alive. His two sons are grieving from the loss of their mother, who I believe had cancer. The detective himself, of course, also grieving, but in his own way, as an adult, has kind of shut his children out. He continually breaks promises that he makes in good faith, uh, because he just has stuff come up and pop up. Poochie, uh,
Hoochie.
Poochie. He ends up being, in essence, the ringleader of all of this. Peter Stormare, or David in this case. Unfortunately, his wife is murdered, and there is pretty much an investigation that leads to the fact that there are several people in this room, a tripod set up, and they film this murder. On the walls, it says "Come and see," and "Come and see" is quoted from the Book of Revelation, which is in essence just that, a bear witness of what's getting ready to happen. Um, it's not too far down the road where the young girl Kristen, who's played by Zhang Zi, again, I think is how you pronounce it.
Kristen Spitz.
We're going to call her Kristen.
Zhang Zi.
So she meets him on the street and has a discussion about why people do the things that they do. And he's kind of soaking all this up, feeling bad for her. And then she pulls from her jacket a bag with a fetus in it, a small fetus, and says that she didn't realize that this was still inside of her, which is in essence her stepmother. At that point in time, that's kind of the beginning of, albeit a weak one, kind of the Shyamalanian type of twist, if you will. Where she spends the remainder of the movie in prison. Now, her role from that point on is to almost tell a story and fill in the blanks that the movie does not cinematically portray.
And I think that's where you got the Hannibal Lecter vibes, because he keeps returning to the prison to try to find out more information, just like she did in Silence of the Lambs.
Right. Oh, you're absolutely right. And she didn't do a terrible job at it, but that's kind of her role to kind of narrate as we move forward. They find at that point in time, I believe they find the other horseman who was killed, um, and he wasn't put into a rack or anything like that. He was laying, if I remember correctly, face down, or maybe he was face up next
I
to a
think he's
bed.
face up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Face up.
and
To
that
the right of the bed. Pestilence, wasn't he? Sorry, famine.
well, that's what it,
Yeah.
and I think it's kind of going hand in
Black
hand. Is yes,
Horseman.
the black. Well, let's just say black
Yeah.
horse because I don't know exactly uh, what they were trying to do with that. But yes, when she continued to say, "You'll never find pestilence," and her, I mean Kristen, she said, "You'll never find pestilence." I don't know what that meant because they obviously found them pretty easily.
The pale horse is also pestilence. I think there's kind of two that maybe
There,
mention pestilence.
there's a lot of crossover. So I think we're going to call that guy, whose character I think was named Garrison. Uh, we're going to call him Pestilence and the Black Horse, and he is out. So at that point in time, we've got two people dead, and the next horseman is Corey, I believe, the young kid who calls his brother to meet him at a diner. So he's wanting to give his brother one last opportunity to accept him for who he is, which in this case is nothing more than just a loving brother who has aspirations and dreams in life, but he happens to be gay. Who cares? But his brother cannot handle it. He's worried about what people will think about him being associated with that. He's definitely turned off and put off by that. And so when the conversation starts to go in a direction that Ori sees is just it's going completely the wrong way, he drugs his brother's drink so that he can take him to, in essence, this warehouse where he's planning on putting on quite a show for him. In the throes of making that happen, when they go outside, his brother, who's a much bigger man than he is to begin with, is already almost completely out of it and can barely stand. So he's helping him to the car as he's asked his little brother to drive him home. And he meets a thief in the parking lot. And the thief in the parking lot tries to come after the younger kid, who ends up stabbing him with that long, almost looks like a crocheting needle or something.
You're talking about that Steve-looking MFer, right?
That's right. I don't know what you mean by that, Steve guy, but I
What are
resemble
you
that.
talking about? He was like a white, tall, bald dude. Looked like you. What are you talking about?
There you go. All right, I figured that's where you're going. But I could have worn my hoodie for this.
Yeah.
Correlation. But at that point in time, you realize that he's probably the one who stabbed the woman in the beginning too, with the, as Jake stated, what kind of precision, Jake? He did.
What?
Maybe not. Maybe he didn't say it. Actually, you were talking about how the heart was cut out. That same
Oh, yeah.
same guy had
Closest.
talked about the fact that whomever had stabbed this woman was more than likely a medical savant, somebody.
Yeah, medical precision.
Yeah.
I think.
He,
Yeah.
yeah, he knew.
Which
he knew what he was doing.
that part right there was really interesting to me, because it made it a point. To me, the point in that is that there was an obvious mission that they didn't want to stray from. went out of it. I mean, I'm not going to say went out of his way, but he made sure, and it said that he made sure to stab the guy in a place that wouldn't kill him because that guy was not part of the plan.
Correct.
And I thought that was interesting because these weren't just murderers, these weren't just psychopaths. They had a plan, and I just
Yeah.
think that that was important to mention.
So the next scene is, in my opinion, probably the best in the whole movie. So um, Taylor, or Eric Balfour, is hung up in the suspension rack, um, one of four that was made by that tattoo artist for all of these situations that were coming up. And so he was not the one to be killed, but he was the one to witness his brother killing himself while being hung in that torture rack, not being able to move or do anything about it. And of course, his eyes are forced open, and
Mhm.
man, that scene was powerful in a lot of ways. Obviously, it was grotesque and bloody, but it had a lot of emotion in it. That young man felt that the only thing he could do was take his own life in such a gruesome way to really stick it to his brother. And
And it's also important to mention that his brother had the Clockwork Orange treatment with
Yeah.
the
yes,
I don't know what those are called necessarily. I'm sure there's a very specific word for those, but the metal devices that hold your eyelids open.
yeah, and they don't look very comfortable. To
Mm-mm.
I'm sure. I mean, he was blinking a lot and moving his eyes around. I wonder how that feels as an actor too, just
Mm.
trying to. Got to be a little bit
I
scratched. But
wonder. I wonder if he actually had that happen to himself as an actor. Did he? Did he actually? Because I don't know, man. I don't think I could do that.
I don't either. But
I don't
I mean, the
like near
close
things near my eyes like that.
there were a few different scenes where they really focused on the close-ups
Yeah.
of things, and they showed him right in his face a few times with the camera,
Mhm.
especially with his eyes like moving back and forth and everything. And I mean, you felt like you were in the room with him. It definitely was a lot.
Yeah.
And
He
so this
wanted to
kid,
make sure that he saw.
he saw, and he
He
saw
needed to
right
see
too.
it.
Come and see.
Yes.
So of course his little brother takes a bone saw and cuts his sternum open, and damn near is able to remove his own heart in front of his own brother, and scarred him for life, undoubtedly.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah,
It's not something you walk away from.
no, no. And so they find the detective find him a little bit later on, still with hooks in his arms and everything else, and just kind of a drooling nincompoop, trying to tell them about what he had seen. And it's a big statement, I feel, in the fact that his brother, after the fact, instead of feeling remorse for already killing himself, uh, and I hate to use the derogatory term, so I'll call it the F word. But he calls his little brother the F word, like he was only somebody like that would do that to themselves. Like he was still playing the victim, although his brother took his own life in the fashion that he did. So it kind of goes to show that even though his brother had a plan to kind of almost set his older brother straight through shock and awe, it didn't unfortunately work. But you can't change some certain people's perspective and thoughts on certain things,
Yeah.
regardless of what you do. So that was kind of a powerful moment within the movie, I felt.
It's probably also a lot easier to remain angry or be angry at somebody when you're feeling so many emotions. Kind of puts a little bit of a wall up, I think.
I agree. I agree. And then so we come finally, and there's a lot that kind of twists and turns throughout the movie, little small stuff here and there. The younger son getting involved, seeing all the bloody pictures, and
Yeah.
wanting to help his dad out. And that this spoke to the tension within that family and the disconnect that they had. There was a hockey game they were all trying to go to. They were all about ready
Mm.
to get in the car and go, and everybody was so excited they had to cancel that. So that has gone on for several years.
Yeah, you could tell for the way they
The
were
oldest son,
acting. Like it's like,
absolutely
oh, this is happening again.
happening again, and so it only took a few scenes for them to really drive home the fact that this is the way that it's been for so long. They
Yeah.
also make a point of noting that the son actually states it at the end that you've not been in my room for 3 years, my
Yeah.
bedroom.
All you had to do was go in my room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
Pretty powerful
his
that
bedroom
line.
is ultimately what takes us to the final scene, where the detective goes into his son's bedroom. The entire room is completely covered and painted in white. They go back to a theater, an old dilapidated theater that I guess the detective Aiden had met the son Alex's mom, and so that was kind of the relevance there that he wanted to make his magnum opus, if you will, done in a location that would bring the most emotion out of his father to cause the most amount of pain. What I don't understand is when Dennis Quaid's character gets there, his son drugs him and handcuffs him to one of the chairs. How the hell does the kid then get up onto his own suspension thing? He's
Ah,
slow. You know what I mean?
I thought about that too, and I was wondering about that myself. And I was trying to brainstorm like how that could be possible, but he also says that there are, I think he says like millions of us or
Mm-hmm.
something. So I'm going to assume that maybe like some of the others that weren't directly involved in the murders, like he got like somebody that was like affiliated with their group
Right.
to put him up there.
That's an
I'm going to
awesome
have to assume that.
explanation.
Sorry,
That's
what?
an awesome explanation.
Oh,
Yeah. There
I
you
mean,
go.
it makes sense that I mean, I feel like sure, yeah, that
thanks.
works.
But that's the only thing that
It's
makes
a
sense.
possibility.
Obviously,
Yeah.
it's probably something that doesn't really need to go. They don't need to explain and go into depth over, but that does make sense. And Kristen makes a point of um, within back in the movie at some point too when Dennis Quaid's character talks to her. How did you guys find each other? Like, and she's like, how do we not find each other? We're nothing. We're everywhere. You know. So
Yeah.
it again alludes to the fact that there's numerous amounts of these people out there, all joined together through the website that they had, I guess. And then the tighter group or knit of characters were all part of uh, the same. They all had the same therapist. You need to backtrack
Hmm.
briefly. So that was the correlation on how all the horsemen actually met each other, is they were all part of the same therapy around the same time frame. So they were dealing with. But so there you've got his son Alex hanging almost in a pictorial version of like Jesus. I mean, it
Hmm.
looks like he's hanging on the cross, even though there's really no cross there. It's more of like a beam across his back and then hanging and everything. And uh, he had hoped that he would drown. I think that's what he said. I'm supposed to. I'm
Yeah,
supposed
I
to
was
drown, not
kind
bleed
of
out.
confused about that, actually. I didn't
So
know what significance that meant, but
in
Well,
the
they
beam,
explained it earlier in the
maybe by now.
movie.
yeah,
Yeah, they explained it earlier in the
Oh,
movie.
they did?
Because the mother,
With the mother.
she drowned on her own
Yeah.
blood.
yeah, yeah.
And I think that was what he was going for when he was hanging up there, was to
But,
drown in his own blood.
but why? Why did he want to drown like she did? He's supposed to
I
be the white horse, right? The white
I think
horseman?
that, and that's another thing
Yeah.
too, is I think he is deaf. He should be the
The white horseman, though, not the
well.
pale.
I think he's the pale horse
I don't think
because
so.
I
I
questioned
disagree.
who. Okay, and that's a good thing because
Yeah.
he could either be the white horse or the pale horse, and that was something that I wanted to discuss with you guys because I was super
Yeah.
confused. Obviously, Kristen is War. I think
Yeah. That one's obvious, yeah.
that's
Yeah,
obvious. Garrison,
that guy's
uh,
pestilence,
that guy's
or sorry,
Pestilence,
famine,
Famine
famine.
Pestilence,
Yeah.
whatever you want to
Yeah,
call it. And then we have two other characters. We have Corey, who
Mm-hmm.
who cut himself open, and
Wearing a
then
green
Alex.
shirt. It's got green in
So, so there you go. So
it.
maybe there's the correlation. But what do you think about that, Jake? Corey versus Alex, as far as which force they were supposed to
it's
depict.
tough. It's tough for me because I thought that Corey was death, but I also, for some reason, systematically in my mind, always think about the pale horse being last.
Hmm.
So I think that it was probably just me confusing myself in my mind because I was like, uh, I don't know why, but it feels to me like the pale horse is the final chapter, the final horse. So, um, but white is conquest.
Right, and that's supposed to
So I
happen
mean,
first. So
but I mean, I don't know, man. Corey, he killed himself in a very gruesome. I don't know. I mean, I think he might have been dead,
that's kind of the loose
and
correlation of where,
that's why it's a little convoluted.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
I have one more thing to add. Um, I thought that the White Horseman is supposed to be the Antichrist. So him being up there, kind of like like a crucifixion type
That's a good point.
image.
That's a really good
Um,
point.
and somebody in the movie said something about the white horse being like the Antichrist, and I just feel like,
Or Jesus himself.
mm, yeah, kind
which how could you have?
of.
I mean, that's like, it's funny, but you guys remember the movie The Dictator, and
Yes, yeah.
and the funny thing was is he changed both positive and negative to Aladdin. So
Mhm,
it two different things mean the same thing in the same
mhm,
fashion. Like what do we think from the movie? It could be two completely opposite things. It's either the Antichrist or Christ. Well, it could
Hmm.
be any different. I mean, how could you be any
yeah.
polar opposite? So that I mean, that's kind of
Well, that goes
difficult
back to
to.
the interpretation of the Bible and how it's kind of not. There's nothing really kind of set in stone. It's kind of up to. That's why there's so many sects of religion because there is no like it is this.
Right.
It's
But
Mhm,
that, I mean,
such wide,
that's
so
a big
widely
one
interpreted.
to me. If you're going to
Yeah.
be ambiguous in something, it's not
yeah.
about the Antichrist or Christ himself. That's a big one. You should know the difference, one or the other, which is going to happen. But because they don't, it just makes it that much more difficult to follow.
Well,
To me.
while they may
Yeah.
be polar opposites, I think that realistically the intention is kind of the same
Mhm.
of conquest, if you will,
Yeah,
coming back, conquest, being. I'm not sure.
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
that's a tough one. I mean, the idea of the conquest is the actionable force that happens remains the same. It's just a matter of with uh, what comes along with it. Is it out of
yeah.
love and
Mhm.
caring for humanity, or is it out of just despising, humans?
Well, I think either way, the four horsemen themselves is about a rebirth of sorts. It's about a cleansing, if you will, regardless of whether that's in a positive or negative connotation. I think it's about a cleansing of kind of probably the bad of humanity. I mean,
Yeah.
because
Like repentance,
yeah.
kind of.
So I think that it's kind of that's why I said I feel like it's kind of the same intention because I think that no matter how you look at it or how you want to put it, I think realistically it is about a cleansing and a new beginning and a second coming, if you will, kind of thing.
So if we want to play off of that, let's say for instance that Alex is the white horse, and potentially we could say he's the pale horse too, for that matter. Either way, but
He is the horse.
if he is he's the lighter colored horses. Um,
Yeah.
but if he is the white horse, then
He had a white room.
the end of the movie might make sense in that obviously uh, Aiden escapes from the handcuffs, kicks the hell out of the chair, and is able to get away from that. Now the funny thing was is he shoots this thing down, and that huge timber falls on top of his son
Oh
from like
yeah.
10 feet.
I was like,
And
dude,
I
that guy is in pain for sure.
was like, dude, there's much better way of getting that kid down than just letting a tree fall on top
Well,
of him.
he had to hurry, man. The
I
kid was drowning
I
in
get
Yeah.
it.
blood.
Well, he wasn't drowning; he was bleeding. But uh,
Yeah.
But
He wanted to
s-
I mean,
drown, but he
yeah.
didn't.
But
Whatever.
point is, he wasn't going to bleed to death yet. But anyways,
so if the uh, kind of like Jay kind of put it more eloquently, but if the idea of the white horse is to kind of start anew and fix things, if you will, take over in a new direction or whatever it might be, it feels as though if that kid survived that was the opportunity for their family to reconnect and to start fresh again. Although the kid's going to juvie or going to be tried as an adult for whatever he's done anyway. So, um, but the ending of the movie was the hardest thing for me to kind of take in. It felt
Yeah.
uh, a little bit rushed and maybe not super well thought out. I mean, it happens all within a moment's time, and then he falls down, and I love you, and we're going to be okay, and then boom, end scene.
Well, I think
Ambiguous.
that honestly, him being involved with all of that, him and his father may be closer if he survives, but I think it's going to be behind thick glass or bars. I mean, there's that kid's not walking away from that. I mean,
Yeah.
unless the father pulls some real strings. But I mean, like, how do you walk away from that? I mean, he was involved, even if he wasn't responsible personally, he was still involved with multiple people's deaths, and I mean that's conspiracy and at least what's the term I'm looking for here? Accessory.
Mm.
He had the mens rea.
Yeah, I mean he's a part of that whole thing. So I'm really not sure, and that's part I was thinking about is I was like, well, man, if he survives that it's still not going to go very well. I mean, I think but I do think that the change happened. If what we're looking at is the point of the change, because that's what a lot of this thing was about children basically having parents that are neglectful or are abusive and them kind of waking them up to that. I think
Yeah.
that if I had to predict the future is that Dennis Quaid or Aiden, if you will, is going to be a completely different man after this.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
I think he's going to change his ways. I think he's going to be a good dad. I think he's going to show the kids how much he cares about them and back off the job. I mean, at least I think the younger brother is going to have a much brighter, better future,
Right.
Yes.
at the least.
And I think that I don't want to call that a cop out for a thriller kind of action horror movie, if you want to call it that. Suspense maybe more than horror, um, but it did feel a little bit almost like a Disney ending to me. Like, okay, everything's going to be all right. We're good to go. When so much happened within the movie to point it in a different direction. Um, Having said that, of course, we have to assume that the son makes it, which there's no guarantees on that either. He's holding him.
Yeah.
They just they just kind
They
of
leave
cut.
it kind of ambiguous.
They definitely do. So
Yeah.
I
It's probably better. I hate to say it, but it's probably better off for him if he did die.
Mm.
I mean, honestly, because that sounds like it's going to be absolutely friggin' miserable.
Yeah.
If I had to predict what I think would happen.
give his dad the opportunity to make changes to in raising his younger son and moving on from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to be meeting up at the diner in that situation much. However, there was a really cool quote, and I want to say that before I forget to, but I believe that it is actually the character of Kristen that says it. But death is what happens at the end, war is everything else.
Mm.
She
Kind of
did.
like that quote.
Yep, I
I
do
wanted
like
to
that.
throw that in there because I thought that was this movie did have some cool biblical references. It did have some cool quotes, some cool lines in it. So, I mean, I definitely think that that was to me, memorable.
I agree completely, and I think collectively it also went to show how I mean because all of the characters that uh, put out the most in the way of well, for example, killing people and acting out whatever their plans were all some of the weakest characters within society. You know, a young Asian girl, a younger gay young man. Uh, now we didn't know much about the guy Garrison that ended up getting killed at some point and became pestilence, but um, obviously the son of the detective kind of portrayed that kind of weak, submissive type of just everyday kind of kid with his head down, and these are the ones you had to watch out for the most because they were the most effective in carrying out their mission. Uh, so it shows that there's through weakness there's actually strength. I guess I don't really know how to put that right, but um, that
I
they
don't think that those people in real life could have ever pulled
no
off something so intricate, and I don't think that I mean, that was kind of to me a little bit far fetched as well. Just they're I don't think that they could have done it. They didn't really have like they didn't have that thing a lot of characters do, like Hannibal Lecter and like Kevin Spacey's character in Seven. They just I don't know, they weren't very believable. It just seemed like some angry kids that did some like crazy stupid stuff. But like, where did they get the resources for this stuff? Like, where did they get the money to make the rigs? Where did they like who
Right.
was setting what up? It just there was a lot of I think there's a lot of holes really when you get into those kinds of things. A lot of questions that didn't have answers.
I mean, who knows how much money Alex has saved up at 20
Right?
bucks a day.
Yeah.
He even asked him like, how do you afford those
Dad keeps
tickets?
throwing money.
Yeah, I mean, you throw him a
Yeah.
$20 bill every other day. I mean, that's going to
Yeah.
add up over 3 or 4 years. Uh,
Yeah, but he was also eating at the diner. I mean, and doing stuff. I mean,
yeah,
you
I
know.
mean, collectively,
Not every day.
it felt like the Spitz family might have had some money too. So,
Yeah.
and to Jake's point, although I agree with it, I think that Kristen's character could have been that type of person that was
Mm.
enough off of her rocker to do that sort of stuff and take it to whatever length that she would have needed to. So,
Yeah, I think she was the most believable as far as actually being like crazy,
right.
like
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But she was also like a 110-pound little Asian girl,
right.
so
115.
But I mean, 100, but she was
115. I think
also,
that's what they say in the movie.
but I guess,
what was that, John? What did they say?
No, I think they say that she's 115 pounds. They were looking at the
Oh, 15.
footprints.
Sorry.
I don't know,
It doesn't matter.
she was a peanut regardless, but
Yeah.
um, they're, although they were kind of weaker characters, they obviously all had snapped at some point mentally to the point where, um, and the human mind is an amazing thing. We can do both amazing good and terrible bad things uh, alike with depending on how you want to focus your energy. And so they put all their efforts into one basket, and that was hurting the people that hurt them, and for the most part
I mean,
succeeded.
and also realistically, a lot of people have shitty parents, but they just kind of go to therapy.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Just saying.
And there was that too. I mean, like, oh, you haven't been in my room for 3 years. I mean, I know a lot of kids growing up that would have loved that. They don't want people, they don't want their parents up in their room and telling them to put the video games down, or
Hmm.
they want their privacy, they want their magazines, they want their this, their that. So, um, but obviously the difference being is that they had lost their mom, and so there was a bigger void than just your typical
Some
angst.
people go to therapy. Some people end up on my 600-pound life. Some serial killers.
That's true. That is true. So I guess that's kind of about it in a nutshell. I mean, it took us a while to get through it all. I talked a lot about some things and went all over the place, but overall, it's one of those movies where the first time I watched it, I was more intrigued by it than I was the second time. I think once I had seen it once and knew what had happened, I wasn't as interested, and I started to see certain uh, holes in the plot, voids, gaps, drawn out stuff.
I
So
know you. I know you really talked it up the first time you saw it.
I did,
I know you did
I did because
because you really. I remember that.
I think I really kind of liked it. It was late night when I watched it. It hit right at the moment when I saw it the first time, and in watching it a second time, it didn't have the same feeling. And it wasn't
I
just
would.
because I knew what was happening. It just I was starting to pick a lot of it apart.
Yeah.
I would say for me, it's probably one of those movies that'd be great for background noise if I'm doing something else. You know.
That low, huh?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's something that I'd put on that if I was folding laundry or cooking dinner, kind of walking back and forth. I mean, yeah, that's where I'd put it. It's something I'd probably watch again. I mean, that's a lot higher than a lot of things I see, but I mean, I probably wouldn't need to sit down and watch it.
Jen, would you go out and mow the lawn with it playing in the background? Was it that bad for you too?
No. No, I didn't really think it was bad. I mean, I thought it was worth a watch.
Is it
Um,
worth a second watch?
I watched it twice actually. So
Was it because
yes,
you
I'll have
slept
to
through it
say
the first
yes.
time?
No, I did not sleep through it at all. Um, but I just wanted to. I had certain questions, kind of like the one we were just talking about, like how did he get up there, like by himself? So I rewatched it to try and figure that one out, and came to that conclusion that I said earlier. But anyway, oh yeah,
I
and
think
you
that
were
the
also debating about like is he the pale horse or sorry, the pale horseman or the white horseman? And I also wanted to rewatch it because of that part, like trying to figure that out.
I mean, with the second
Um,
watch,
but
I
yeah.
might be more confused than I was the first time about who was who. So
well, I don't know if I could get any more confused the second time, but I will say that I always appreciate, and I want to take a second to say that I always appreciate Jen being on the show for one particular reason, and that's that the answers a lot of times, like there's always the things that I'm like, well, what about that? Jen always comes up with something creative that makes sense, and I really just wanted to point that out. Like, so many times we talk about things, and you got that one idea where I'm like, yeah, okay, or you notice the things that I just that's awesome.
Oh, thanks.
But I just wanted to say thank you for that because I mean, really, I didn't even think about that. Somebody else helping him out. I would almost like to know a little bit more about that, though. The other people involved. How big is this community? I mean, what is this? Is it just like,
Millions.
what?
I think they said
Is,
millions. I don't know.
yeah. Well, is it just? I doubt it's
I
millions.
don't know.
That sounds crazy. But is it just a bunch of pissed off kids at their parents? Is it like? I mean, I don't know. It just, or is this kid just? I don't know. Maybe it's a lot like me with this show. We're gonna be kissing 200 subscribers here soon, but I would like to say that there's million, but there isn't.
do you have to kiss them all at
Um,
the same time, or
I'm gonna kiss every single one of them when we hit 200 because God knows I love everybody that subscribes to this show and people that watch it, and I'll kiss them all.
well, I'll tell you what, I'll leave all those 200 or 199 subscribers or whatever we got to put this up. How would you have ended this movie? What would have, because I've thought about that. What would I have done differently to maybe have it be a little bit more climactic at the end? Because I felt as though it it hit a point after the kid cut himself open with a bone saw. It just kind of slowly just uh, gradually went downhill and never really went anywhere after that. I, when you find out that the son is the lead bad guy, it didn't have any sting to it. Like it was almost like, well, I kind of figured that. Who didn't see that coming? And
Well,
then
they gave us the best kill in kind of the climax a little early. I
right,
mean,
yeah, they did, and I think because of that, the ending was just it was so lackluster for me that it was almost um, unforgivable. I mean, I think that they almost ruined what they had going by ending it with it. And I
I mean, in
question
comparison, like, sorry, I didn't mean
no,
to
you're
cut you
I
off.
just question how other people would have figured out a better way to end it.
I was gonna say that in comparison to Seven, because I made that correlation. It's like Seven had some intense moments, with their kills, but it's like they still led us to that big "what's in the box" moment, which made everything else dwarfed in comparison to that, kind of crazy awesome ending that Seven had. We definitely missed that in this one. That
For sure.
for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really know how I would end it to make it even more impactful, but the fact that he either dies or almost dies, talking about the older son, um, I definitely feel like that is going to change Dennis Quaid's character for the better with his younger son, which is definitely an important part of the ending. So
And the
keep
older son
that.
took care of the younger son. Maybe that was the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, quite possibly.
I mean,
Yeah.
he intended on dying that night. There's no doubt about
Yeah.
that. The kid
Yeah.
intended
Yeah.
on sacrificing himself. I would have liked to, because I kind of was spitballing some ideas today uh, as I was driving around at work. I was thinking, it would have been kind of cool if they had another rig set up and Dennis Quaid was in it and he was hung by all these hooks and he was forced to kind of watch his son take his own life in the same way that the two brothers did with the bone saw and everything else.
But then it would be redundant.
Well, yes and no, because this is why. So if his son is like up on stage and maybe just stabs himself and is bleeding out or whatever, and then Dennis Quaid's character could choose, um, almost in the same way like that Saw movie where the woman dives into the pit of needles to get like a key or something, uh,
Mm.
like sacrificing pain to for the greater good.
Mm.
So he could kind of rip himself out of that cage that he's in, hurting himself physically in order to save his own son. So that might have been kind of a cool scene
Mm.
for him to experience physical pain in order to
Yeah.
be there for his son when he needed it.
I think this is more about non-physical pain. I think it's more about like inflicting more emotional pain with guilt uh, and uh, trying to make them actually like possibly a better person in a way, to see the way that they've wronged the people that they are supposed to love. And they've really wronged them. They've really not tried to understand them or pay any attention to them, or mistreated them. Uh,
I
so,
would have ended it with an actual apocalypse.
yeah.
Can't beat that.
I suppose. Yeah, that's true. But
Apocalypse of all the sad and unloved children rise up.
a
All the
flash
millions.
mob comes into
Please.
to the building
I
there.
was just thinking like a nuke, but sure. I
Mhm.
mean, zombies, whatever.
I would have had like a dance video at the end because that's what this guy's known for. So we could do like
Yeah.
a music video where people come in and dance it away.
Mm.
But no, I mean overall, like I said, Jake, the first watch, I enjoyed it. The second watch, I was kind of like, man, if I probably ever had to watch it again,
Yeah,
uh,
I agree.
but anyway, it was a good one to kind of pick apart. And,
Yeah.
To mow the lawn.
yep.
All right. Well, if we're all set, I'm going to go ahead and end this with a quote. We haven't done that in a while.
And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts say, Come and see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on it had a bow. The crown was given unto him. He went forth conquering, and he conquered. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, Come and see. And there went out another horse, that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him, a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou heard not the oil of the wine. And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, Come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse. His name that sat on it was Death.